Utah's season has not gone as they would have hoped so far. So people are saying, is it time for Kyle Whittingham too, considering retiring after this year? Should he come back for another year? Morgan Scalley, is he the best choice to continue to lead this program? And what is wrong with this Utah team at so many key spots? We're breaking it all down on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen and view of the day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. If it's your first time listening to our show, make sure you like and subscribe. Love interacting with all of you in the comments, and you can follow our show on social media on X today at Locked On Utes. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. You can visit FanDuel.com to get started. My name is JT Wistrcill, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department, and I'm excited to have on a first-time guest on this show, but someone all of you Utah football fans will know very well, a member of this Utah football team for 3 seasons, most notably the 2019 team. Utah former defensive back Josh Nurse, kind enough to join me. And Josh, really excited to have you on to talk about the current state of this Utah football program. But before we dive into all of the current things, just tell kind of some Utah fans what you've been up to.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you for having me first and foremost, JT, man. It's great to be here. Great to talk about my Utes, man. You know, although things aren't where we've hoped for them to be, you know, still got to cheer them on, man. I just been, still training, staying at it. I recently just moved from Florida back to Georgia, back home here in Atlanta. So I just did a UFL showcase down in Orlando. So I'm hoping to, use that to propel my way back into the NFL, hopefully. But I'm just training every day, staying at it, and, waiting for that call.
Well, I know everyone listening to this is cheering you on, and I can also say we have very much enjoyed hearing your tweets. You've been someone who's been tweeting out each game. You cheer on the Utes just like us each week, so I'm excited to get your thoughts on a couple of key topics. Like I said, we'll get to this team specifically, but first, this season has been a disappointment. And whenever you fall short of your expectations, there's going to be a lot of blame that is leveled at the head coach. Coming into this season, there was a lot of discussion about Kyle Whittingham's potential retirement. They named Morgan Scalley as successor. He had said at Media Day that he would not be the coach of this team more than likely in 2027. He went on Jim Rome and said he was day-to-day. So I think there are a lot of people are saying, hey, should Kyle Whittingham step away since things are starting to get away and college football is changing so much? I still say there is no one better to lead the Utah football program than Kyle Whittingham. He should coach as long as he wants to coach. So I hope he continues to stay on. I trust Kyle Whittingham because of the new heights and levels he has taken this Utah football program to. Do you feel like Kyle Whittingham is still right now the best person to lead Utah in 2025?
Absolutely, man. If I'm Coach Witt, I like you said, he's at a point in his career now to where he can just, it's up to him. Everything, the ball is completely in his park. Utah, as the fans, as former players, as current players, everybody is behind Coach Witt. Coach Witt is a GOAT to a lot of us, you know what I'm saying? So I think he should do it. I think he should, at least try one more time. 2027, I think that's a good time frame to him for him. I mean, good time frame for him to decide, like, okay, after 2 or 3 more go rounds and it's not, panning out, or if it's not satisfactory to the way that he would like, then it's time to, because then I think about hanging it up or, retiring and just, because it's kind of tricky too, because, at the same time, what if you keep running it back and it gets worse and worse? Or, obviously, you don't want to think negatively and whatnot, but, that's a potential case, and whatnot. And I'm almost positive he wouldn't want to leave on a note, a bad note, or, leave on like a losing season or something like that. But me personally, I think he should do it. I think he should do it one more year at the very least.
Yeah, I feel that way too. Josh, all of us get to see the press conferences with Coach Whittingham. We hear some media clippings and things of that nature, but of course we didn't get to play for him. So I want to know what has made Coach Witt able to transcend the different eras of just, the levels like we talked about. He's risen this Utah football program too, taking them from Pac-12 newbie to Pac-12 champion to now first year in the Big 12. What makes Coach Whittingham unique and why has he been so successful?
He's a player's coach. Like what I respect about him most is he puts his trust in the players. Like when I say his trust, his utmost trust. Like the leadership council of the team
Mhm.
is basically like, they're the guys who police the team. Like, and for him, when he does things like that, when he puts that trust or he gives you the opportunity to earn his trust, that's what makes people want to play for him. That's what makes people want to play hard for those guys. Like not only him, but Coach Scalley as well,
Mhm.
Sharif Shaw. Like they all entail like, opportunities where, their trust is being put
Mhm.
into you. And, you never, as a player, you never want to, screw up an opportunity or anything like that for a coach to trust you. And the more and more that they trust you and trust you, the more and more that makes you want to play for them. I think Witt, he understands players. He's very open. He's not a my way or the highway type of coach.
Mhm.
He's very open to, new avenues or new suggestions or things. Like he's a genius in my eye.
Mhm.
And all people who have a lot of knowledge, they listen very well. And I think that's what he does amongst his players is listen very well to us.
You said the not my way or the highway type things. He's not stubborn in
Mhm.
that regard. A lot has been made of Kyle Whittingham has said before, when you come to Utah's program, you will become us. We will not become you. Correct me if I'm wrong,
Yes.
Josh. I believe what you're talking about when you are saying that he's not my way or the highway type of guy is he's willing to adapt to the changes offensively and defensively and the schematics and things in game, as well as listen to his players. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, absolutely. That's spot on.
Yeah, he's done a great job transcending these eras in large part because of that ability. And like I said, I don't feel like it gets better than Kyle Whittingham. So as long as Kyle
Yeah.
Whittingham wants to be the coach of Utah football, I still think we should be, even if this season hasn't gone to plan. But of course, when he does decide to hang it up, whether that is, and he has earned the right to make that decision. If he decides, I'm done after this year, or even after 20, 25, 26, whenever it is, time for me to
Right.
step away. We know the next head coach of Utah is going to be your defensive coordinator, Morgan Scalley, who has done a fantastic job with this Utah football program. But because Utah is struggling this year, fans overreact, people get frustrated, and there are people online you see like, oh, is Morgan the right guy for the job? I absolutely believe he is still the right guy to replace Kyle Whittingham. When you look at Morgan Scalley, he's earned this opportunity. Utah is still the best team in the Big 12 in terms of total defense. Utah is holding opponents to 18.9 points per game, which is the 15th best mark in the country. And if you hold a team under 20, you should win. I talked about this going into the season, Josh. When Cam Rising was last healthy in 2022, Utah averaged 38 points per game. If they did that this year, they would be undefeated. Even if they averaged 25 points per game, they would have lost one game on the season so far. Utah has finished last year with a top 5 run defense. For 7 straight years, Utah has had a top 3 total defense, and they currently have the best total defense in the Big 12, as I mentioned. Morgan Scalley has consistently produced elite defenses, and he feels like the right guy to not only lead this team, but definitely keep the culture in place.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nobody. I don't think there's a more perfect candidate to succeed, Coach Witt, than
Mhm.
Morgan Scalley. He is the pure embodiment of what a Utah man is. Like he lives it, he breathes it, and that's like something like I've recognized that about Coach Scalley from the first day I've met him. Like from the first day he came and recruited me at Blinn College. Like
Mhm.
that's what that he's been about Utah. He's all about Utah, and he will forever be about Utah. I don't think there's anybody better for the job than Morgan Scalley, honestly.
Not only does he have the love, but
Yeah.
obviously he is a defensive genius.
Yes.
What's the best trait that Morgan has as a DC, in your opinion, that just makes him so effective?
To me, it's just his tenacity.
Mhm.
He's never satisfied. Like he's always trying to figure out a way to get better. Like it's literally like a constant chase for him. Like he's he's in the film room. There's times where I'm just walking around the facility looking, trying to, and I walk past a room and it's him in there just by himself and he's
Mhm.
looking at something. I can tell, he's studying something, but he's looking
Mhm.
for that small edge. And like we got this particularly we had this thing that we do is called nah, actually, I'm not gonna say that. I'm
Okay.
not gonna say that. I don't want to give
I
away
respect it.
their
I respect it.
strategies. I'm not gonna say that. But we have something that we do for on defense for other teams,
Mhm.
when we want to control the tempo of the game. So I'll say that. But just things like that. He's a genius with it, man. He's just he he never he's never satisfied. He's always trying to find the best edge against his opponent week in, week out, like week in, week out. Like he might have us, one particular game, like we played Cal in 2019, and we always have corner blitzes and stuff like that, in the defensive playbook, but we never really too much used them. But that particular game, he knew that the left tackle wasn't really the best at picking up or passing off, you know, blocks and stuff like that. And so we attacked it that way. So we sent corner blitz after corner blitz after corner blitz after corner blitz, and they couldn't know how to stop it. Like he knows exactly when to call stuff. He studies a team that much that he knows when to call certain calls in certain moments. And to me, when you have a DC that understands how to do that, he puts you in the best position possible to make plays. And that's why 2019 was such a fun year, because he put all of us in such great positions to make plays.
Yeah, that was a special team. We'll talk about that in a moment. And I don't think Morgan's going to hear this, but I know if he was listening, he'd be very proud of you for not revealing, even no matter how big or small that defensive secret may have been. I know that's Morgan smiling somewhere right now. Like, that's Josh. That's my guy right there. Keeping it together for me. So yeah, well, I do want to get to that 2019 team you talked about. The 2019 Utah team is something that this year's Utah team would have loved to be. And unfortunately, just hasn't gone the way in the regular season. So I want to talk about what's been holding this Utah team back, talk about what we're both seeing, and see if we align on what we've watched on tape and just watched live so far. We'll be breaking all of that down in one moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by our friends at 5 Hour Energy. Our friends over at 5 Hour Energy know that being a passionate football fan isn't just a hobby, it's a way of life. It takes a lot of energy to power through all-day tailgates, touchdown celebrations, or an agonizing second overtime, which is why they've created the Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot with a special flavor called Fan Fuel, the energy shot made just for super fans like us, the fans who are the first in the parking lot and who are the last to leave the field after storming it. We see all of you. And with this type of fan shot is made for all of you who love the huge plays in the big game. We got the BYU game coming up next week. That is going to be a long day of tailgating. That's where you need 5 Hour Energy to get you through the day and all of the emotions that are come with Utah playing BYU once again. 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy. Whether you're preparing for the big tailgate or ironing your jersey, your game day to-do list is always a mile long. That's why the limited edition Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot is here to help you keep you fueled through the season. What's your fan fuel this week? Whatever it is, do it with a 5 Hour Energy. Available on 5hourenergy.com. Shipped nationwide. Try 5 Hour Energy today. Former Utah defensive back Josh Nurse still hanging out with me here. And Josh, want to go a little bit position by or each side of the ball, honestly, and talk about what we're seeing that's just going on with this Utah football team right now and the things that are holding them back from being where they want to be. Let's start first with the defense. The defense has not been a big issue for Utah. Yes, they have allowed yards and plays, and they have given up some points too. But like I said, this team would have one loss on the year if the offense had just scored 25 points or more, and the offense has just really struggled so far. But when I look at the defense, I think the biggest thing has been the tackling so far. We've seen more missed tackles this year than normal for a Utah defense. And I think also just you see a moment where a player is really good. I don't think the consistency has been there, where that's why you see them give up a 20-yard run. And then all the other plays, it's like, oh, they only average the Arizona State game, right? Scatterboo got loose twice. That was most of his yards. Most of the game, Utah kept him in check, but the consistency just hasn't quite been there. Injuries have hurt on the defensive side of the ball too, but those are the biggest things that I feel like have held this Utah defense back from being a historically like one of the best Utah defenses we've seen, because they haven't been a 2019 Utah defense as we've sseen. What have been the biggest issues so far on the defensive side of the ball to you that's led to this team being 4-4?
You got to be consistent. You have to be consistent in every single area, every facet of the game, because when one part lacks, your opponents will see that, and they'll scheme it that way. They'll put their players in position to where they're going to force you guys to tackle if they know you may not tackle well. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of teams, I feel like, did that, and they understood that about Utah, and they took advantage of that when they could. But like you said, even with that, Utah was still for the most part able to keep a lot of
Hmm.
people in check. And, so they have to what they have to do is continue to build off that, just continue to build off the positives that they do have within the defense while simultaneously working on the negatives like tackling and stuff like that. Like we might have to spend an extra 2 or 3 periods working on tackling, you know what I'm saying? So that way you get that muscle memory down packed and it's not so much as a problem come game day.
Yeah, like we said, this Utah defense, but way down on the bottom of the reason this team is forward four right now. But still, some things if you were asked Morgan Scalley and the players on this group that they would like to see cleaned up. Speaking of the reasons this team is forward four, the offensive side of the ball, it just hasn't been great lately. It's been your
Yeah.
face says it all, Josh. It's been
Yeah.
a struggle. I've said this for the last few weeks now. There are other reasons that Utah's offense has failed. I think at times the interior of the offensive line has struggled. I think the tight end blocking is not as good. You got Brant Keithy, he's awesome, but the blocking isn't always there. There have been some play calling issues, even though I thought last week Bajakian's game plan was better, I thought, than the recent ones from Andy Ludwig. But
Yeah.
look, football is football. The most important player on the field is the quarterback. And the truth is, when Cam Rising got hurt, Isaac Wilson and Brandon Rose have been put into a spot that they haven't been ready in. I do feel like quarterback play is the biggest thing holding Utah's offense back.
Uh, it is, but at the same time, when I look at Isaac Wilson, he's a freshman.
Agreed.
There's no. I'm not using that as an excuse,
Well,
but
really
I
quick, Josh,
think.
this is what I've been
Mhm.
saying consistently. The biggest reason to me that Utah's faltered is because the Utah coaching staff did not find a better backup quarterback options. I do not think it's fair that Isaac Wilson has been thrust into this spot.
Right.
But when I go back and watch these games and I'm like, okay, why did this play not work? More times than not, I usually find Isaac missing a throw or missing a read or he's just not comfortable in the pocket is
Right.
the reason.
Right. Yeah, and that's the case. As I've watched the games, that's I
Mm-hmm.
see that too. There's a couple of check downs he may have missed, but
Mm-hmm.
I think that I've told like the way that I look at Isaac Wilson's situation is there's also beauty in it because Utah kind of did the same with me when I first
Mm-hmm.
switched over from receiver to cornerback. I think Jalen Johnson at the time he had surgery on his shoulder after his freshman year, so he wasn't able to participate in spring. So they threw me in the fire, and when you throw someone in the fire, to me that is the best learning experience. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's as these games, each of these devastating losses that Utah has suffered, I'm almost positive that each one Isaac Wilson would definitely learn from. Should he choose to stay at Utah or whatever the case may be, I truly believe Isaac, like he's gonna learn from all of this, and it's good that he's learning this early. Now granted, that may not be what's in the best interest as far as this season
Mm-hmm.
for the program, but I think that Isaac Wilson is the future of Utah football quarterback wise. Like you can see he flashes a bit,
He does.
like Oklahoma State. And, when you see
Mm-hmm.
those flashes, I'm just like you can't help but it's kind of like you kind of get in like your general manager mode and you just like we just got to get him to do these things consistently, and if he can do those things consistently that he's good at while simultaneously working on the negatives or the parts that he lacks in his game, I'm telling you he'll be another great quarterback at Utah.
The
I
70-yard
like that.
touchdown pass to Money Parks
Hmm.
against
Yes.
TCU. Against Houston, there was a sideline throw to Dorian Singer where it's just like,
Hmm.
ooh, that's elite right there. But then it's
Yeah.
the misses in the flat and the screen passes where it's like, you just want to see that
Yeah.
cleaned up. And you're
Hmm.
someone who can also speak to this, Josh, is the growth you can make, not just over the course of your college career, but
Yeah.
freshman to sophomore year. I mean, that's a huge jump, right?
Yeah. It's a major jump.
Mm-hmm.
It's because you you're going through it during the season. You're learning as you're going through the season, but that off season after your first year in college, that's all you can think about. That's all
Mm-hmm.
you can think about is the mistakes and how you want to not do that anymore. So I'm almost positive, and Zach has, a good role model in his older brother.
Mm-hmm.
Not Zach, Isaac.
Isaac, yeah.
Uh, Zach's his older brother, but great role model. You know what I'm saying, for him to
Mm-hmm.
look up to. As in terms of somebody facing adversity. His older brothers faced adversity, so he has people around him that he can learn from. Not only just at the Utah football facilities and whatnot, but it's in his older brother and his family as well. And
Speaking
I
of
think that'll
adversity,
help him out.
Agreed. Speaking of adversity that his older brother faced, that came in the form of you, Josh, when this Utah defense back in 2019 really took it to BYU. We're
Yeah.
coming up on BYU week. So, Josh, want to
Mhm.
get your thoughts on that week in one moment. But first, want to talk to you guys about another one of our sponsors today. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. Get ready to take on the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. And Josh, we got a big game in college football this weekend. Ohio State is traveling to Penn State, both teams in a top 5 matchup. Ohio State favored by 3.5. This Penn State team's good, but they haven't gotten it done yet. So I'll roll with the Buckeyes and take the points in this one. Where
Yes.
are you leaning right now?
Buckeyes all day.
Mm.
Jeremiah Smith
Oh,
is the truth. Okay. Okay. That guy is the truth. I love the way Ohio State's playing. Even though they got that one little skirmish on their record, I don't think it's like a loss. It wasn't a loss that was like
yeah,
that they
cross
should have
country game
been.
at Oregon. Like, are we going to
Yeah, I don't
hold
even
that
think it
against
should
them?
have. Yeah, it shouldn't have been a game where they should even feel like, man, that there shouldn't have been any decline. That wasn't a loss that should sting. That's just like, okay, we ran out of time. There's a difference between losing and running out of time. I think they ran out of time against Oregon.
They literally did, to your point. Will
Yeah.
Howard did not get down in enough
Yeah.
time, and thus they did not have a chance to,
That
to kick
too.
the field goal. So you are
Yeah.
absolutely right there. So we're feeling like the Buckeyes are going to roll. However you guys are feeling, head over to FanDuel today. That's FanDuel.com. We're going to talk about BYU in one moment, but Josh, you voiced something when talking about Isaac and his future. And this is just a conversation that's been around Isaac, not something you voiced, but people have been saying, oh, was Wilson just handed the job because he's a 4-star recruit? That narrative has been pushed out there by the fans. As someone who joined this program, practiced, fought hard, and earned his role, are people just given jobs in the Utah football program?
Never. Ever. Nothing is ever given in that program. It doesn't matter the position. It doesn't matter even the staff. Like everybody
Mhm.
earns everything about Utah. And that's what makes Utah what it is that it's understood and embraced by everyone in the program, from the staff to the coaches all the way down to the players.
No, 1000%. You see this so often, the cool stories of the guys that rise up and rise through. When Don Kincaid transferred in from San Diego,
Yeah.
right? He wasn't just like, oh, you're now a tight end. Like, no, you're now our #1 tight end. Like, no, he had to fight
Right.
for and earn that role. And I think the other reason I think that's so crazy is there really wasn't a big difference when Isaac Wilson and when Brandon Rose came in for Isaac. It's not like Brandon looked better. I mean, it was basically,
Right.
it was very similar. If anything, both of them,
Mhm.
like we said, kind of made mistakes. They did some nice things at times. So that's why I'm with you the same way. And obviously you played for Utah. So that's why I'm glad you can share that
Yeah.
narrative. And speaking of your time at Utah, you beat BYU 30-12 when you were in this rivalry game back in 2019. You guys went to the Cougars' house. That was when Francis Bernard got that big pick, got to flash
Yeah.
the Ute
Shout
in
out to
that game.
Francis.
What's crazy is, and Josh will list them in a moment. For those of you guys listening to this, drop who of the teammates that Josh played with in 2019 are still on this Utah football team. It's 3 of them. It's 3 prominent names. I've given you a chance now for those of you in the comments to list them off. It is Mekhi Bernard, as well as Cam Rising and Brant Keithy. It's crazy that those guys were still teammates with you, Josh, all the way back then. But having that experience, yes, no Cam, is still big in a rivalry game like this. Josh, where is your confidence at for this Utah team to be able to get a win against, look, the Cougars are hot, but as we know in this rivalry and any
Yeah.
rivalry in college football, anything can happen, especially under the lights in Rice-Eccles Stadium.
Well, honestly, I think Utah has a chance. There's always a chance. Everything, any given Saturday in this case, But what Utah has to come out and do in order to beat BYU, like you said, BYU is hot. I've been watching their games, tuning into their games as well, and they are playing well as a unit. They have to. Utah has to do the same thing. Utah has to come out and they have to play as a unit. They have to be in one motion on offense, defense, and special teams. There can be no drop off at any given moment. Now, throughout the course of the game, there's going to be
Yeah.
mistakes. There's going to be adversity. They have to answer, and they have to answer correctly at each moment that the adversity presents itself for Utah, because it's going to happen, and it may happen early, it may happen late. Going back to the 2018 game, it happened very early for us. We got down 27-7. It's like, when we thought we had an answer, it's like they would answer again. So it's just answer. If they give you an answer, you got to give them an answer right back, because that's what that game is going to come down to. It's going to come down to who can make the least amount of mistakes, who can be consistent on offense, defense, and special teams, and who can, it's down to, the coaching points at the very end, situational football. I feel like this game is going to come down to situational football because, like you said, it's a rivalry game. It doesn't matter if a team has lost every single game, from start, and then they up until that game, when it's rivalry week, it's rivalry week. Everybody is, it's understood. The coaches always let them know, like, regardless of what's happened, this week is different. This week it'll always be different. It won't be the same as the game after, and it won't be the same as the game before. This week is its own week. And if Utah treats it that way, they can get the dub. I believe they can do it. I believe they can do it. It's possible.
I do too, especially because look, BYU's been really good. They're undefeated. They have continue to find ways to win games. They've, to me, have looked more like a team of destiny than a dominant team. They nearly lost to Oklahoma State. You look at the way they won against Kansas State. Like, I give them credit for making plays in the special team games on turnovers. That's not a sustainable way to continue to beat teams, right? This is a BYU team that has been in some close games. They continue to find ways to win. So once again, like, BYU is the better team right now. Should they win this game? Probably, but it's in Rice-Eccles Stadium, and it's also a rivalry game. And Josh, this is something I really want to hear you speak to. Mike Bajakian is the interim offensive coordinator. That's a lot to have to turn over in a week. How big can the bye week be for Bajakian, as well as whether it is Wilson or Rose? They're both splitting the reps. It feels like they can still continue to improve, right?
Yeah, I think the bye week is actually beneficial in this point, because not only does it give, the quarterbacks as well as the OC time to come up with things, or come up with things that may work for them in their game plan. It gives Isaac and the other quarterback, it gives them a chance to, just get extra reps, whether that's in their dorms or whatever the case may be, but just, going over plays mentally, taking mental reps and stuff like that. That bye week gives them a lot of time to get those mental reps down pack and get whatever game plan that they come up with down pack. And not only does it do that, it gives the team a lot of time to get healthy, because that's going to be important as well, is getting healthy for a BYU team. I know we got a couple of players with season-ending injuries. Prayers up to those guys. But it's always next man up. And I think that they can win this game. They just gotta take full advantage of this bye week and game planning and getting healthy.
Last question, Josh. What is it like to play in this rivalry game?
Man, it's nothing like I'm not gonna say that it's nothing. It's something that I can't even. I don't think I can describe it. Like, me explaining it to people does it no justice. Like, yeah, I remember my first year at Utah in 2017, and we played, down there at LaVelle Edwards Stadium, and it was so loud I couldn't even hear the guy on the kickoff return next to me. He was standing literally right next to me, and that was the eye opener for me, to how big not only college football was, but how big the Holy War is. I've heard people talk about it, but I've never, as a kid from Georgia, all we know is Auburn and Iron Bowl and Georgia versus Auburn and stuff like that. But you know, after seeing that, I had to get my family to come see that, because me telling them about it did no justice. I'm like, I have to come experience this and see this. Like, the energy, the crowd, the intensity of it all is just it's unmatched. Like, to me it's one of the best college football rivalries in all. Like, you got a lot of rivalries out there, but I think this one is definitely top five. I don't know, regardless, you talk about Ohio State, Michigan, you talk about Penn State, Ohio State, but I think this one is definitely top five. This it's just it's so much history in this rivalry as well, on the BYU side as well as the Utah side. And I love it. I love the tenacity on each side. From the fans, from the Utah fans to the BYU fans. I see it all. I see it all the time on Twitter and stuff like that. But I love it, man. It's just there's nothing like this rivalry.
There's something special. And I know you're excited to go out there. You're going to be there for the game. So
Hmm.
tell everyone where they can follow you at and continue to keep track of you as you make your journey back. Like you said, we're working on the USFL and then up to the NFL too.
Yeah, you guys can follow me on X. I called it Twitter, but you guys can follow me on X at Uno Quattro J1414, and then you can follow me on Instagram at official J Nurse.
Well, Josh, we're hoping you're being at the game in this coming Saturday will lead, or the following coming Saturday, but will lead to a Utah performance similar to the one you saw in 2018. It would be incredible and really fun talk with you, man. Really appreciate you stopping by. Thanks, Josh.
Hey, man, thank you for having me, JT. I appreciate you.
That's going to do it for this week of Locked On Utes. But guess what? It is BYU week next week. We got a ton to still break down ahead of the return of this rivalry. Utah versus BYU. We're breaking it down next week. Hope you have a great weekend, everyone.